Do you feel like you've achieved happiness? And how do you think about that?
Yeah, actually, that's been a big kind of thing from early on in my 20s. I just had this sense that I needed to figure it out, that I needed to kind of find my own way, because I had the sense that like people around me, and like I just felt like they were just kind of chasing things because other people were doing it, and responsibilities, obligations, and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, I need to set up things in my life where I'm happy and I'm doing things that are meaningful, that I won't have any regrets later on, in life. And so, yeah, part of, in my 20s, like it was kind of a natural thing, but I kind of came to this conviction, this decision that, I kind of stepped back and say, okay, what's kind of the most important things in life that I should be doing? And, or in other words, how will I not have regret later on in life too, right? And there were several things that came up, but one was like, okay, just the type of person I am. And I'm like, if I'm like a jerk and just a selfish, greedy, whatever, just thinking just about myself, I don't think that's going to be the greatest place to be at. I don't think I'll be like happy with myself later on. So that was like one thing. I'm like, even if I don't do anything with my life, I'm going to be a person who actually cares about people. And my hack was, I'm like, even the so-called, like the poorest of the poor, or the most unforgotten, or the least so-called, recognized people, that I should actually have some concern. That should bother me. And if it doesn't bother me, I'm not concerned. If I don't have that type of empathy and compassion, then I'm like, that's going to be a F for me. My whole life will be an F.
Sure.
That's what I kind of concluded. And so that was kind of one thing very, very high up there. Another thing very high up there was, I concluded, like, if I'm doing everything for myself, later on, I don't think I'll be happy. I think I'll be much more happier without regret if my priority was others above myself. And the thing is, it's not so much kind of like this moral thing. It's not a moral thing. It just makes sense to me. It's like, sure, if I'm just like all self-centered and focused on myself in my 70s or 80s, I don't think I'll be that happy, versus I live my life, kind of fine. You take care of yourself to a certain, manner, but you prioritize kind of your impact for others. And so that was kind of a second area where it's like, the things that I do, and that's the thing, ever since like my early 20s, I made that decision. I said, like, everything I've kind of done has been with those priorities. And so even business is kind of like, it's not, my top priority isn't per se to make money for myself and do X, Y, and Z so I could, live better / whatever. Yeah. My top priority is like, this has potential to create resources to do good with, right? And it's always been kind of like the main factor. And the other thing is with happiness is, I'm like, I think it's in relationships, not per se the tasks I'm doing per se. And this is back in my 20s again, where I'm like, if I'm going to be successful in anything, I'd rather choose relationships over career accomplishments. Wow. And so, as I said, I'm going to just build relationships and prioritize them to the point where it's like, if I'm terrible at, I'm letting people down, I'm like breaking, people's hearts, or my, loved ones' hearts, et cetera, and all this stuff. And then it's like, I'm not going to be very happy. That's, it's not going to be like a great place to be in when I'm older, 80 years old. But if I had, a great kind of, I would say I'm taking care of, right, the relationships in my life, and really just knocking it out of the ballpark in that area. Then in my 80s, I'll be like, imagine, like you'll be like, it's been fantastic, your life in a sense. And so made up my mind, and that shaped a lot of my decisions too, where I've made a lot of decisions where it's like I've sacrificed business opportunities or business expansion or time commitments or appointments and all sorts of things because I'm like, I think this is not going to be helpful for relationships or with my wife or family, et cetera. And typically, that kind of usually might handicap my kind of career accomplishments, whatever. But the crazy thing is, I think there's certain things with business and investing, they're kind of like hacks where, if you make the right investing decision, it could like make up for, like your lack of time or your lack of like, typically you would think like, you need to put 16 hours a day on something, for years and years for it to pay off. Right.
Yeah.
But there's sometimes like a different approach. I think that, maybe it's partly luck, but it's just, if you can find something that, has a different way. Like, for example, the business we started in 2008 was in the App Store. We created an app, but we did it right at the time when the App Store was just launching, just like a month or two after. And it was like amazing. It just like, it was the momentum, the energy was all there. The opportunity was all there at that time where, it didn't have to be something that we labored over like 24/7 over. Yeah. Even though we did put in a decent amount of work to get it up and running, but it's never been something that, we've put an obscene amount of time and energy. But then again, like you could say, on the flip side, you could say that's opportunity lost. Maybe, I could have done more, over the years. But then it goes back to some of my decisions back in my 20s, choosing what will make me happy.
Right.
Like, what is success? Right. That's like something I thought about like constantly in my 20s. Like, what is success for me? How am I going to define it?
Wow.
Because I caught on. I'm like, people define it for you already. Like the whole like culture and society defines success already.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a counter definition, then you're just by default accepting everyone else's definition of success, whether or not that's healthy or good or right or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, I had this big kind of dilemma or decision. I'm like, what is my definition of success? And I've chosen to follow that over the years. And I don't have any regrets right now. But we'll see. Yeah, I'm always open to change,
Right.
We'll see.
Wow. So it seems like you really spent a lot of time, especially early on, thinking about these existential almost things about yourself as a person, and tremendous amount of wisdom. And I mean, does that go back to the time you spent traveling and seeing the world? Is that a direct correlation between seeing all those things, or was that always part of your thought process? Was that something you always thought about?
Yeah. I think it's been kind of something, even when I was like a teenager. I've always thought about kind of these deeper questions. It's always bothered me, some of the things happening around the world with like just some of the unfairness in some ways, or the things that happen that are unjust, and just so it's like our world is so crazy. Like if our world is just our neighborhood and our work, family life, then it's a sane world. Mm-hmm. But if our world includes, the billions of people living on the fringe and the edge, right? Then our world is crazy. This is literally an insane, crazy world we live in.
Yeah.
And for some reason that bothered me, like really early on, even in high school. And I've always wanted to play a role in that. And then, I think traveling's helped, reading has helped. And just kind of having a sense that people generally, like, just because they think they're right, aren't right necessarily. Mm-hmm, just because society says they're right doesn't mean that that's right. Kind of having this kind of maybe healthy level of skepticism and doubt of authority, and and saying that I need to find my own conviction, my own path, in a sense. All of that probably has helped over the years.
Wow. You're a very deep person. You're a very deep person. You've given a lot of thought to this, man. It's an inspiration, honestly. That's awesome. Wow.